So how do you know what to measure and how much to measure? This is a massive problem when I'm dealing with people, especially when you're dealing with people-related services and you're trying to look at performance reviews or employability, and it's not quite as easy. What do you actually measure and how do you do it? Well, I suggest 3 things you should be measuring. You should always measure data, numbers. You need facts, you need figures. Even when I'm working with clients and working on the health and well-being, I have a questionnaire and we have data, we have numbers. So it's always good to have your facts, have your numbers, have that data. You've got to be measuring that. So any sector you're in, whatever you're doing, you can't just go off feelings and what's going on in the day. You've got to have the data. That's the first thing. The second thing is always be measuring growth. So you can measure the data in relation to growth. You can measure it in relation to quality of customer outcome or how happy your customers are. How are you measuring growth? And think about that, right? Every business will measure growth differently. It's not just increased shareholder value. It's not just increased profits. Your growth might be, for example, with our business, we took it online last year. That was massive growth. So we measured that and said that was effective. And the third thing is you need to think about, okay, how can we measure how well people are doing? You know, how do we measure people? How do we measure that? Do you have DISC profiles? Do you have some kind of coaching routine? Do you have mentors? Do you have things in place so you can clearly track that and you can measure things? Because you should be measuring people, sounds horrible, but enabling people, measuring the health and well-being and where they're at as well as productivity. You should be measuring your numbers of your business and the growth. And those 3 things, if you're keeping an eye on all 3 of those things, making sure the figures add up, looking for the growth and taking care of the people. Those are 3, in my view, some of the most important ones you can start measuring. So try that today. If you've just been measuring the data, not been paying too much attention to the people, start with both. Have you really thought about growth? How do you define growth? How do you measure it? So every business will measure things differently, but knowing what to measure, start with those 3 things. Measuring your data and your numbers, keep an eye on always having those metrics. Always keep an eye on growth. That is one of the goals. Growth, growth, growth. Growth for more growth. It leads to more growth. And measuring the people, their health and well-being, their productivity, using profiles, using psychometrics, having something, and then bringing all that together, and that can give you a more informed picture of what to measure and how well you're doing.